The bridge of the Zalaki destroyer Vextar hummed with anticipation as Captain Krell studied the tactical display. The human vessel hung motionless in space, its hull scarred by decades of service, its engine's signature barely registering on their sensors. To most observers, it looked like nothing more than an aging cargo hauler, exactly the kind of easy prey the Zalaki had been hunting since the Armistice ended their war with humanity 3 years ago. Target analysis complete. Captain, reported Subcommander Vash, his scaled fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The vessel identifies as a Remembrance, civilian registry, minimal energy signatures, no active weapons detected. Krell's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The Zalaki Empire had been testing human resolve for months, probing the edges of their territory, seeing how far they could push before the humans responded. So far, the humans had shown remarkable restraint, perhaps too much restraint. It made them appear weak, and in the galaxy's current political climate, weakness was an invitation. Life signs. Krell asked, though he already knew the answer would be irrelevant. The Zalaki didn't take prisoners from human vessels anymore. The last war had taught them that mercy was a luxury they couldn't afford when dealing with this particular species. 37 souls aboard, Vash confirmed. All appeared to be civilian crew. No military signatures detected. Perfect. The Remembrance would make an ideal target for what the Zalaki called aggressive salvage operations. They would board, eliminate the crew, and strip the vessel of anything valuable, particularly any advanced human technology that might give them an edge in future conflicts. The galaxy was already whispering about another war brewing, and the Zalaki intended to be prepared. Bring us to boarding distance, Krell ordered. Deploy the assault pods. The Vextar moved with predatory grace, its weapon systems powered but not yet active. There was no need for a show of force against such a pathetic target. The human ship continued to drift, apparently unaware of the approaching danger. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Zalaki destroyer approach with the calm patience of someone who had seen the scenario play out before. Her weathered hands rested steady on the command console, and her gray eyes reflected the tactical display's cold light. At 63, she had hoped her fighting days were behind her. The Remembrance was supposed to be her peaceful retirement, a converted warship-turned-cargo hauler, carrying supplies to the outer colonies where she and her crew could live out their days in quiet service. They are not responding to our hails, reported Marcus Webb, her first officer. Like Chen, he was a veteran of the Human-Zalaki War, though his cybernetic arm told a more visible story of that conflict's cost. Weapons are powering up on the destroyer. I see them, Chen said quietly. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the efficient calm of people who had faced death before and survived. These weren't ordinary cargo haulers. They were all veterans, all survivors of battles that had scarred their souls and taught them hard lessons about the galaxy's true nature. Captain, came the voice of Chief Engineer Leonard Vasquez over the comm, the Zalaki are scanning us pretty thoroughly. They are going to figure out what we really are soon enough. Chen allowed herself a small, bitter smile. The Remembrance had been the UHS Retribution during the war, a dreadnought-class battleship that had earned its reputation in the siege of Kepler 442. Her crew had stripped away most of the obvious military hardware when they converted her to civilian use, but the ship's bones were still those of a predator. The Zalaki scanners would eventually penetrate their camouflage, but Chen suspected it would be too late by then. Sarah, Marcus said quietly, using her first name as he did only in private moments. We could still run. The engines are good enough to get us out of here. She shook her head. They've already made their choice, Marcus. Besides, where would we run to? The colonies? Home? No. If we run now, they'll just find easier targets. Other ships, other crews who might not be ready for what's coming. The tactical display showed the Zalaki assault pods launching from the destroyer's belly. 6 sleek craft, each carrying a full boarding party. Chen felt the familiar weight of command settling on her shoulders, the responsibility for her crew's lives and the terrible decisions that command required. All hands, she announced over the ship's comm system. This is the captain. We have incoming boarders. You all know the drill. This is what we trained for, what we've always been ready for. The galaxy thinks we're just tired old cargo haulers now, but they're about to get a reminder of who we really are. She paused, looking around the bridge at faces that had shared both victory and loss with her. I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to get ugly. But these are the same bastards who glassed Harmony Station, who massacred the civilians at New Geneva. They think we're weak now, think we've gone soft. They're wrong. The assault pods were closing fast. Chen's fingers hovered over the command console, where a series of innocuous-looking switches waited. To anyone else, they might have seemed like standard cargo handling controls. In reality, they were the keys to a nightmare that had been sleeping in the Remembrance's hull for 3 years. "Elena," she called to engineering. "Light them up." Throughout the ship, hidden weapon systems came online. The Remembrance had been designed to look like a peaceful cargo vessel, but beneath its civilian exterior, the heart of a warship still beat. Point defense systems emerged from concealed ports, missile tubes cycled to ready status, and the ship's true nature began to reveal itself. The Zalaki were about to learn why humanity had earned its fearsome reputation during the war. They were about to discover that some wounds never truly heal, and some veterans never really retire. They just wait for the galaxy to give them a reason to remember who they used to be. Captain Chen's finger moved toward the final switch, the one that would wake up the Remembrance's most terrible secret. The first Zalaki assault pod struck the Remembrance's hull with practiced precision, its magnetic clamps engaging as a cutting torch began its work. Inside the pod, squad leader Thrix felt a familiar thrill of combat approaching. The humans had been easy prey during their previous encounters, soft, predictable, hampered by their strange obsession with minimizing casualties. This boarding action would be routine. Breach in 30 seconds, he reported to his squad. Remember, no prisoners. Command wants the ship stripped clean, and dead humans don't file complaints with the Galactic Council. His warriors clicked their mandibles in agreement. The Zalaki had learned during the war that humans fought with disturbing ferocity when cornered, but that was when they were soldiers. These were civilians, cargo haulers, old veterans who had traded their weapons for shipping manifests. What threat could they possibly pose? The cutting torch completed its work, and the assault pod's breach charges detonated. Thrix led his squad through the smoking hole into the Remembrance's corridor, and immediately realized something was wrong. The corridor was too wide, too reinforced. The bulkhead showed the telltale stress patterns of military construction, and the air recycling systems hummed with the efficiency of warship-grade life support. This wasn't a cargo hauler at all. "Command!" Thrix spoke into his comm unit, but static answered him. "Command, respond. We have a—" The lights went out. Emergency lighting bathed the corridor in red, and Thrix heard the distinctive whine of charging weapons. His thermal vision caught the heat signatures of armed humans moving through the ship's passages, not panicked civilians, but soldiers taking defensive positions with military precision. "Trap," he whispered, but his realization came too late. The first human appeared around the corner like a ghost, moving with a fluid grace of enhanced reflexes. Elena Vasquez had been chief engineer on the Retribution during the war, but she had also been a combat specialist. The plasma rifle in her hands had been hidden in an engineering toolkit for 3 years, waiting for this moment. Thrix's squad never had a chance to return fire. On the bridge, Captain Chen watched the boarding action unfold through internal sensors. 5 more assault pods had attached to her ship, but their occupants were finding a very different reception than they had expected. The Remembrance had been designed as a trap from the moment of its conversion, a predator disguised as prey. Boarding parties neutralized on decks 4 and 7, reported Marcus Webb. Elena's team has secured the primary breach point. No casualties on our side. Chen nodded, but her expression remained grim. The real battle was just beginning. The Zalaki destroyer Vextar still hung in space nearby, its weapons now powered and tracking the Remembrance. Captain Krell would have realized by now that his boarding operation had failed, and Chen knew the Zalaki well enough to predict his next move. "Captain," came Elena's voice over the comm, "I've got something you need to see down here." The Zalaki weren't just scanning us. They were uploading data to their ship. They'd been recording everything. Chen's blood turned cold. If the Zalaki had been gathering intelligence on human shipping routes, civilian populations, defensive capabilities, this attack wasn't random piracy. It was reconnaissance for something much larger. "Marcus, get me a line to the Vextar," she ordered. "It's time to have a conversation with Captain Krell." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Zalaki destroyer. Captain Krell stood before a command station, his reptilian features twisted with rage and something Chen recognized as fear. He had realized what his ship had stumbled into, and he was making rapid calculations about how to survive this encounter. "Captain Krell," Chen said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded warships in the galaxy's bloodiest conflicts. "You've made a serious mistake." "Human treachery," Krell hissed. "You disguise a warship as a civilian vessel. This violates the Armistice Accords." Chen almost laughed. "The armistice you just violated by attacking a vessel in neutral space? The accords you ignored when you boarded us without provocation." She leaned forward, her gray eyes hard as steel. "The Remembrance is legally a civilian cargo vessel. The fact that my crew includes veterans doesn't change that. The fact that we're capable of defending ourselves doesn't change that." "You killed my soldiers," Krell snarled. "Your soldiers died attempting to murder civilians," Chen replied. "That's not my fault. That's yours. But here's what concerns me more, Captain. My people found your data taps. You've been gathering intelligence on human shipping, human colonies, human defenses. This wasn't piracy. This was military reconnaissance." Krell's silence was answer enough. Chen felt the familiar weight of command decisions settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about one ship anymore. If the Zalaki were preparing for another war, if they were targeting civilian vessels and colonies, then the fragile peace of the last 3 years was already over. "Here's what's going to happen," Chen continued. "You're going to withdraw your ship and return to Zalaki space. You're going to report that your boarding action failed due to unexpected resistance. You're going to forget you ever saw the Remembrance." "And if I refuse?" Krell asked. Chen's smile was cold and professional. "Then you'll discover why the UHS Retribution was the most feared ship in the human fleet. My crew isn't just veterans. Captain, we're the veterans who broke the siege of Kepler 442. We're the ones who held the line at New Geneva. We're the ones who taught your species that humanity doesn't surrender." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of systems and the distant sound of Elena's team securing the boarding pods. Chen could see Krell making his calculations, weighing his options. The Vextar was a destroyer, fast and well-armed. The Remembrance appeared to be a converted cargo hauler. In a straight fight, the Zalaki ship should have every advantage. But Chen could see the doubt in Krell's eyes. He had heard the stories from the war, the legends of human ships that had fought impossible odds and won. He was beginning to understand that this wasn't a cargo hauler at all. It was a trap, and he had walked right into it. "Your answer, Captain," Chen said quietly. "Choose quickly. My crew is getting restless, and they have very long memories." Captain Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed his options. The Vextar was a modern destroyer, equipped with the latest Zalaki weapons technology. The human ship was old, converted from military use, operated by a crew that should have been past their prime. By every tactical analysis, he should have the advantage. But the stories from the war whispered in his mind. Stories of human ships that had fought entire fleets and won. Stories of crews that had turned defeat into victory through sheer, blood-minded determination. Stories of the UHS Retribution and its legendary captain. "You're bluffing," he said finally, though his voice carried less conviction than he intended. "You're an old cargo holder with a handful of veterans. My ship can blast you apart before you can even charge your weapons." Chen's smile was patient, almost pitying. "Elena, are you ready down there?" "Ready, Captain," came the engineer's voice over the comm all systems online. The old girl's purring like a kitten. "Mr. Webb, please show Captain Krell what he's really dealing with." Marcus Webb's fingers moved across his console, and the Remembrance began to transform. Hull plates slid back to reveal weapon ports that had been hidden for 3 years. The ship's power signature spiked as military-grade reactors came online. Point defense systems emerged from concealed positions, and the vessel's true profile became visible for the first time since its conversion. The Remembrance wasn't just a converted warship. It was a fully operational Dreadnought-class battleship, one of the most powerful vessels humanity had ever built. Its weapons had been carefully hidden, its true nature disguised, but the ship's deadly capabilities had never been removed. "Impossible," Krell breathed, watching his tactical display recalculate the Remembrance's threat assessment. The Accords required all human warships to be decommissioned or converted to civilian use. The Remembrance is converted to civilian use, Chen replied. We carry cargo, we transport supplies, we serve the outer colonies. The fact that we retain the ability to defend ourselves doesn't violate any accords. It's just good sense in a galaxy full of predators. The truth was more complex than Chen was willing to admit. The Remembrance was part of a classified program, a network of retired warships that had been positioned throughout human space as a last line of defense. To the galaxy at large, they were peaceful cargo haulers. In reality, they were sleeping guardians, waiting for the day when humanity might need their protection again. That day had arrived. Captain, Webb reported quietly, we're receiving coded transmissions from the outer colonies. The Zalaki have been more active than we thought. 3 more ships have been attacked in the last week. 2 were destroyed with all hands. Chen's expression hardened. The attack on the Remembrance wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a coordinated campaign. The Zalaki were testing human defenses, probing for weaknesses, preparing for something larger. Krell, she said, turning her attention back to the destroyer's captain. You've just confirmed what I suspected. This isn't random piracy. It's the opening move of a new war. Your people are targeting human civilians, gathering intelligence, preparing for an invasion. I don't have to confirm anything to you, Krell snarled, but his defiance was weakening. The tactical display showed him exactly what his ship was facing, and the odds were not in his favor. No, you don't, Chen agreed. But you're going to anyway. Because if you don't, I'm going to do something that will make this conversation irrelevant. She turned to Webb. Marcus, open a channel to Earth Command. Full military encryption. It's time to wake up the network. Webb's fingers hesitated over the controls. Opening that channel would mean the end of their peaceful retirement, the end of the quiet years carrying cargo between the colonies. It would mean war. Are you sure, Sarah? He asked quietly. Chen looked around the bridge at her crew, veterans all, people who had hoped their fighting days were over. She saw the resignation in their eyes, the understanding that peace had always been temporary. They had known this day would come eventually. I'm sure, she said. Do it. The communication array powered up, sending a coded burst transmission toward Earth. Within minutes, every retired warship in human space would receive the same message. The Guardians were awakening. Captain Krell watched the exchange with growing alarm. What are you doing? I'm ending the war before it begins, Chen replied. Your people want to test human resolve. They want to see if we've grown soft in peacetime. Fine. Let me show you what happens when you threaten human civilians. The main screen switched to a tactical display showing the surrounding star systems. As Chen's message propagated through the network, dormant ships began to respond. The freighter Prosperity in the Tau Cetai system powered up weapons that had been hidden for 3 years. The cargo hauler New Dawn in the Vega system revealed its true nature as a heavy cruiser. Across human space, dozens of civilian vessels were shedding their disguises and preparing for war. This is impossible, Krell whispered. The Accords are already broken, Chen interrupted. Your people broke them when you started targeting civilians. Now you get to see what happens when humanity decides to stop playing by the rules. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Captain Krell is going to carry a message back to his superiors. Captain, no. Krell's composure finally cracked. If you attack my ship, it will mean war between our species. Chen's laugh was cold and bitter. War was already coming. Captain, your people made that choice when they started this campaign. The only question now is whether it's going to be a war against peaceful human colonies, or a war against the species that held the line at New Geneva. The Remembrance's weapons locked onto the Vextar, and Chen felt the familiar way to command in wartime. They had hoped for peace, had tried to build a quiet life among the stars. But the galaxy had other plans. Fire, she ordered. The Remembrance's weapon spoke with a voice of controlled fury. Plasma bolts struck the Vextar's engine compartments with surgical precision, crippling the destroyer's ability to maneuver while leaving its life support and communication systems intact. Captain Krell's ship listed to starboard, emergency lights flickering across its hull as damage control teams scrambled to contain the destruction. Direct hit? reported the weapons officer, a grizzled veteran named Patterson who had served on the Retribution during the siege of Kepler 442. Their engines are offline. They are not going anywhere. Chen nodded, watching the tactical display as the Vextar drifted helplessly. Around them, space was beginning to fill with new contacts as the Guardian network responded to her signal. The converted cargo hauler Iron Will had just dropped out of hyperspace, its true identity as a heavy cruiser now revealed. The mining vessel Deep Prospect was approaching from the asteroid belt, its disguised missile batteries targeting the crippled destroyer. "Captain," Webb reported, "we're receiving confirmation from Earth Command. The Guardian protocol is now active. All network ships are powering up and moving to defensive positions." The Guardian protocol had been humanity's insurance policy against exactly this situation. After the armistice, the human military had publicly decommissioned most of its warships, converting them to civilian use as required by the peace accords. What they hadn't advertised was that the conversions were largely cosmetic. The ships retained their military capabilities, hidden beneath civilian facades. Now, across human space, that deception was ending. 6 to 7 retired warships were revealing their true nature, transforming from peaceful cargo haulers and freighters into the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled. "Open a channel to the Vextar," Chen ordered. "It's time to finish this conversation." Captain Krell's image reappeared on the main screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage and fear. His bridge showed signs of battle damage, and emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across his command station. "You've doomed both our species," he snarled. "When the Empire learns of this attack, they'll mobilize every ship in the fleet. This will be war on a scale the galaxy has never seen." "The war was already coming," Chen replied calmly. "Your people made that choice when they started targeting civilians. The only difference is that now it's going to be a fair fight." She gestured to the tactical display, where more human ships were appearing by the minute. "This is what you're really facing, Captain. Not peaceful cargo haulers and aging veterans, but the most experienced military force in the galaxy. Every one of these ships fought in the human Zalaki War. Every one of these crews has been through hell and survived." Krell's mandibles clicked frantically as he processed the display. The humans hadn't just violated the spirit of the armistice, they had turned it into a trap. By allowing the Zalaki to believe humanity had truly disarmed, they had created the perfect opportunity for a devastating first strike. "You're monsters," he whispered. "You've been planning this from the beginning." "We've been preparing for it," Chen corrected. "There's a difference. We hope for peace, Captain. We tried to build a better galaxy. But we also remember the lessons of the war, that predators like your people only understand strength." The communication array chimed with an incoming transmission. Webb checked the source and looked up with surprise. "Captain, we're receiving a message from Admiral Harrison. He's aboard the Destiny." Chen's expression shifted. Admiral Harrison had been a commanding officer during the war, the architect of humanity's victory at New Geneva. If he was personally involved in the Guardian Protocol, then this situation was even more serious than she had realized. "Put him through," she ordered. The screen split to show Admiral Harrison's weathered face. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes still held the sharp intelligence that had made him a legendary military commander. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority and old friendship. "I've been monitoring your situation. Outstanding work." "Thank you, Admiral, but I think we have a bigger problem than one destroyer." "You're right," Harrison confirmed. "Intelligence indicates this was a coordinated operation. The Zalaki have been probing our defenses across multiple sectors. They are preparing for a major offensive." He paused, studying something off-screen. "I'm sending you new orders. The remembrance is to proceed immediately to the Kepler system. We're establishing a forward command post there." Chen felt her heart sink. The Kepler system was where humanity's largest colonies were located, over 2 million civilians spread across 4 inhabited worlds. If the Zalaki were planning to attack there, it would be a massacre. "Admiral," she said carefully, "are we talking about a full-scale invasion?" "We're talking about genocide," Harrison replied grimly. "Intercepted communications indicate the Zalaki High Command has decided humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to survive. They are planning a campaign to eliminate every human colony in the galaxy. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just another war. It was a fight for the very survival of the human species. Captain Krell, Chen said, turning back to the destroyer's commander, I want you to listen very carefully to what happens next. She nodded to Webb, who opened a channel to the entire Guardian network. Across human space, the hidden fleet was fully revealed now, 6 to 7 warships that had been secretly maintained at full military capability for 3 years. All Guardian vessels, Chen announced. This is Captain Chen of the Remembrance. You've all received Admiral Harrison's briefing. The Zalaki Empire has declared war on humanity. They are planning to eliminate every human colony in the galaxy. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. We stopped them once before, at New Geneva, at Kepler 442, at a dozen other battles. They thought we were finished, thought we'd grown soft and weak. They were wrong. The responses began coming in from across the fleet, confirmations, battle reports, status updates. The Guardian network was fully active now, and the most experienced military force in the galaxy was preparing for war. Captain Krell, Chen said, turning back to the Vextar's commander, your ship is disabled but not destroyed. I'm going to let you go, and I want you to deliver a message to your superiors. Krell's eyes narrowed. What message? Chen's smile was cold and professional. Tell them that humanity remembers. Tell them that we've been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, planning for it. Tell them that the species that held the line at New Geneva is still here, still fighting, still protecting our own. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. And tell them that their history is over. The Zalaki High Command chamber fell silent as Captain Krell finished his report. The massive circular room, carved from black stone and lit by the eternal flames of conquest, had never heard such word before. No Zalaki captain had ever returned from battle with news of defeat at the hands of what should have been helpless prey. Supreme Commander Vorthek, eldest of the Zalaki warlords, studied the tactical displays with growing disbelief. 6 to 7 human warships, fully operational, hidden in plain sight for 3 years. The intelligence implications were staggering. Humanity had turned the entire peace treaty into an elaborate deception. You're telling me, Vorthek said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of 2 centuries of military command, that the humans have been operating a secret fleet throughout the armistice period. More than that, Supreme Commander, Krell replied, his pride still stinging from his encounter with the Remembrance. They've been using the peace to position strategic assets throughout their territory. Every major shipping route, every colonial hub, every strategic system. They have hidden warships waiting. Vorthek's claws scraped against his command throne. The Zalaki had spent 3 years planning their campaign of extermination, believing they face a weakened, disarmed humanity. Their entire strategy had been built on the assumption that human resistance would be minimal, that the war-weary colonies would fall quickly to surprise attacks. How many ships do we estimate they can field? Asked Wally Dethes, commander of the 3rd Battle Fleet. Conservative estimates suggest they can match our entire military force, Krell admitted. But these aren't just any ships, War Leader. These are the same vessels that fought us during the war. The same crews that broke our siege lines, that held impossible positions. That should have been destroyed 3 years ago, Vorthek interrupted. The Accord specifically required military decommissioning. The humans found a way around the Accords, Krell said. They converted their warships to civilian use while maintaining military capability. Technically, they haven't violated the treaty. The chamber erupted in angry chittering from the assembled commanders. The Zalaki had prided themselves on their cunning, their ability to manipulate galactic politics to their advantage. Now they discovered that humanity had been playing the same game, and playing it better. It doesn't matter, declared Wally de Krex, the youngest and most aggressive of the commanders. Hidden fleet or not, they are still the same humans we fought before. We defeated them once. We can do it again. We didn't defeat them, Krell said quietly. The war ended in stalemate. We agreed to the armistice because our losses were becoming unsustainable. Cowards talk, Krex snarled. We have new ships, new weapons, new tactics. The humans have been playing merchant for 3 years while we've been preparing for war. Supreme Commander Vorthak raised a clawed hand for silence. The debate was irrelevant now. The operation had been discovered, the secret fleet was active, and war was inevitable. The only question was whether the Zalaki could still achieve their objectives. "Status of Operation Cleansing Fire," he asked. "All invasion fleets are in position," reported Worley Dethes. "We can begin the assault on human colonies within 6 hours." "Then we proceed as planned," Vorthak decided. "The humans may have surprised us with their deception, but they cannot be everywhere at once. We strike fast, we strike hard, and we eliminate as many colonies as possible before they can coordinate a response." But even as he spoke, Vorthak felt the first cold touch of doubt. The human captain, Chen, had been so confident, so certain of victory. It reminded him of the stories from the war. Human commanders who had smiled in the face of impossible odds, who had turned defeat into victory through sheer determination. Meanwhile, aboard the Remembrance, Captain Chen watched a tactical display as a Guardian network deployed throughout human space. The hidden fleet was moving with practiced precision, taking up defensive positions around major colonies and strategic systems. Admiral Harrison's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to meet the Zalaki in open battle, they would force the invaders to attack fortified positions. "All Guardian vessels report ready," Webb announced. "The network is fully active." Chen nodded, but her attention was focused on the hyperspace scanner. If the Zalaki were planning a major offensive, they would need to move large fleets through hyperspace, and those movements would be detectable. "Captain," called Elena from engineering, "I'm picking up massive hyperspace distortions. Multiple fleets, all heading for human systems." "How many?" Chen asked. "At least 12 major battle groups," Elena replied. "They are targeting every significant human colony simultaneously." The scope of the Zalaki operation was breathtaking. They weren't just planning to attack humanity. They were planning to eliminate it entirely, striking every world at once to prevent any coordinated defense. "Admiral Harrison is requesting a tactical conference," Webb reported. "All Guardian commanders are linking in." The main screen filled with faces Chen recognized from the war, veteran captains who had fought beside her in the galaxy's bloodiest conflicts. They were older now, marked by years of peace, but their eyes still held the hardness of professional warriors. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Harrison began, "we're facing the largest military operation in galactic history. The Zalaki are committing their entire fleet to a simultaneous assault on all human colonies. Their goal is simple: complete extermination." The assembled commanders received the news with grim silence. They had all known this day might come, had all prepared for it, but the reality was still sobering. "Our response will be equally simple," Harrison continued. "We're going to destroy them. Every ship, every fleet, every trace of their military capability. By the time we're finished, the Zalaki Empire will be nothing but a footnote in galactic history." Chen felt the familiar weight of command decisions settling on her shoulders. The Zalaki had made their choice when they attacked civilian ships, when they planned genocide against humanity. Now they would learn what happened when they threatened a species that had survived everything the galaxy could throw at them. "All vessels," she announced to the Guardian Network. "This is Captain Chen. 3 years ago, we hoped our fighting days were over. We were wrong. The Zalaki want to test our resolve, want to see if we've grown soft in peacetime. Let's show them what happens when you wake up sleeping giants." The response was immediate. 6 to 7 veteran crews acknowledging their orders, preparing for battle, ready to defend their species with everything they had. The Guardian Network was fully awakened now, and the most experienced military force in the galaxy was preparing to write the final chapter of the human-Zalaki war. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and the Zalaki were about to discover that some enemies should never be underestimated, especially when they've had 3 years to prepare for revenge. As the first enemy fleets dropped out of hyperspace, Chen smiled grimly. The Zalaki had attacked a retired human ship, thinking it would be easy prey. Now their history was over. They just didn't know it yet.